Hello and welcome. Welcome to the Kitchen Design Experts, the channel that tells you everything you need to know about kitchens, about bedrooms and about home offices. Now then, are you thinking of buying a quartz worktop for your new kitchen? Well, are you making the right decision? Hopefully, I'm going to tell you today. Right then, so what actually is quartz? Well, basically it's made up, as you might have guessed, from quartz. The amount of quartz can vary, but usually it's about 93%. And quartz is one of the hardest materials out there. I think it's only like 2 down on the hardness scale from diamond. So yes, it's very durable. What's the other 7%, I hear you asking? Right, so this is made up of polymers and acrylics. These are very important. First of all, what they do is they hold all the quartz together, which obviously that needs to happen. But the other important thing is the polymers and acrylics, they create the different patterns that you can get quartz in. And there's a huge variety of different colours, patterns that you can get. If you look behind me on the wall, that's actually quartz. And as you can see, it's got a marble-esque type patterning to it. Now at the same time, that's also quartz, completely different. It's black with what we call mirror chips. You might be able to see them reflecting slightly there. And also, this is another example of a more uniformed pattern of quartz. Now, all of these are made from the same materials, and it's those polymers and acrylics that actually change the colour in your quartz. So then, when you're going round asking about quartz, ask about those percentages. It's unlikely that you're going to get any quartz that's got a higher percentage than 93%. That's because it becomes very difficult to fabricate, very difficult to cut and to shape. However, you can get some quartz that's got less than 93%, and obviously that isn't going to be quite as good. So, as a test for your kitchen designer, when you go into the showroom next time, tackle them and say, excuse me, your quartz worktops, what's the percentage of actual quartz in them? I'll guarantee you that maybe 50% of them haven't got a clue. But you do need to know, because this is what you're paying for. Now then, what are you getting then with this hard material? What benefits are you going to get? Well, basically, you'll get a 15-year guarantee with it, which is pretty good, but it does not cover you for heat damage. And quartz can burn. It's not the quartz that burns, it's those polymers and acrylics that can get damaged. So when you've got your hot pan on your hob and you're thinking of putting it directly onto your quartz worktop, stop. Get a trivet, put it on that. Now if it does burn, it can be fixed. They can come round and they can use this special kit that they've got to fill, because what usually happens when it burns, little bits of silicone or acrylics or polymers pop out and leave a little hole in your quartz. Now they can, if it's only small, they can mend that, so don't panic. But what you mustn't do is try to suggest that the gentleman that's come round to check whether it's a problem with the guarantee or not. Don't suggest to him it isn't heat when it is, because they have this special little magic crane they can rub on your quartz that actually tells them whether or not heat's damaged it. So be upfront with them, and 9 times out of 10 they can send somebody round and they can mend it for you. Yes, it's more heat resistant, but basically you've still got to be careful. It's also more scratch resistant, but you can still scratch it. So please, when you're chopping your vegetables, I'd still use a chopping board. Just make sure it's safe. Don't do anything silly with your quartz. You don't want it to be damaged. It will look nice for 25, 30 years if you just look after it. Now then, can it chip? That's a question we're often asked. And quite frankly, yes it can. The susceptible part of a quartz worktop we find is the edge. Either on the front edge, or if you can see here where we've got what we call an undermounted sink, that area there where you're constantly maybe putting pans into the sink, if you catch it, it can chip. It is possible. Again, that can be rectified because all they'll do, if you've got a little chip on that edge, they'll come to site and they'll put a bigger bevel on there. They'll plane it down and they'll put a bigger chamfer on that edge which will take the chip out. So again, if you've got quartz and you've got a chipped edge anywhere, just contact your supplier and they might be able to sort it out for you. Another thing that people might mention to you is a UV filter. Now when quartz first came out, this was a big thing. Oh, our quartz has got a UV filter. And the reason for having one is that sunlight can sometimes make those polymers and acrylics go a bit yellow. But in actual fact, I'm not saying it's nonsense, but it only really applied to quartz that was being positioned outside in direct sunlight, say a barbecue area or something like that. These days, for use indoors, there's actually no need for a UV filter at all. So how thick can you get quartz? When I say thick, what I mean is this dimension here. Now it comes typically in 3 standard thicknesses. 30mm, which is about that, 20mm, which is exactly that, and it can also come in just the 12mm. Now the actual material itself is the same quality, and the different thicknesses, frankly, don't make much difference to the durability of the product at all. You might find you spend a little less money on the 20mm thick versus the 30mm, or indeed the 12mm versus the 20mm, but it's usually no more than 5 to 10% difference in cost. So your decision whether to go to 30mm, 20mm, or indeed 12mm is more an aesthetic decision. What's going to look right with your kitchen? You might see some quartz worktops on display or in photographs that are thicker than the 30mm. The overall top isn't that thickness. What they'll do for you is they'll take a quartz worktop and they'll put another piece of quartz, I'll show you here, like that, as a down stand, so to speak. And that can go down as far as you want. They don't do a joint where you can see it. What they'll do a 45-degree mitre, so the 2 pieces of quartz fit together almost perfectly. The problem with that then is that top edge is extremely sharp. If you did that with your finger, you would cut your finger. So what they then do is they put a small bevel all the way along that top edge. It disguises the mitre joint and it makes it less sharp. And the thicker quartzes can look very nice indeed. But you've got to consider when they do that method of manufacture, it's extremely difficult to put any radiuses on the end of your worktop. You cannot round your worktop. So if you're thinking of having an island with rounded corners, you've got to stick really to the 30mm, the 20mm, or the 12mm. Now how big are the sheets, the actual sheets of quartz? For instance, how big can you make your island? That's a very important question because some of these islands that we do in particular these days, they're huge. And you have to know the restrictions when it comes to quartz. Because the last thing you want is a joint down the middle of this beautiful island. Now typically standard sheets will come about 3 metres long by about 1.4 metres wide. There are some jumbo sized sheets that might go up to maybe 3.2 metres by 1.6 metres. But it's very important to know how big a piece of quartz you're likely to need. So if you're designing an island into your kitchen and you want to go up to that bigger size, that 3.2 by 1.6 to achieve what you want, they come in limited colours. So you have to accept that you might have a reduced choice of colours when you're coming to choose them. As far as islands are concerned, when you get a large piece of quartz, another thing you've got to be aware of is that the patterning in it, if there's a distinct pattern, such as this marbling that you can see here, in a large sheet, you might get that pattern repeating itself, like you do sometimes with wallpapers. Okay, that might offend the eye. So if you don't like the idea of this repeat pattern in your island worktop, you might be better going for a more uniform quartz, one where there's no distinct direction to a pattern. Then it doesn't matter whether the pattern repeats itself or not. So what can you expect from your kitchen company when it comes to actually supplying you with quartz? How do we go about supplying you? Well, obviously, first of all, we've got to cost you for your quartz, and quite simply, we employ a fabricator. That's somebody who is going to take the sheets of quartz and create the worktops and upstands and splashbacks for you. They will get the quartz from their main supplier. So the main supplier supplies them with the sheets, and then the fabricator supplies us. And each job is individually costed. So we send a plan of your kitchen worktops off to our fabricator. They send us a price back, and we let you know how much it's going to be. Now, when they cost for the job, not only do they cost for the quartz, but the fabricator, in most cases, also costs for the service of coming to site to template the shape of the tops, then they fabricate the tops, then they deliver and install those tops. What you've got to be aware of is that this takes a little bit more time than a typical kitchen laminate type worktop. So what would usually happen is we as kitchen fitters would fit your kitchen without the worktops, let the fabricators come and template, and usually it can take about a week, sometimes 2 weeks for some companies, to come back and to fit your quartz worktops. What you've got to be also aware of is the sink and the hob which sit in those worktops are quite important appliances, and you have to ask yourself, can you do without those for a week or 2 weeks? In many cases, what the service that we offer our clients is we can put some temporary MDF worktops down for them and put a temporary sink and a temporary hob, so they aren't inconvenienced too much. Again, that's a good question to ask your kitchen designer. Is that a service they offer? Right then, let's talk about the money, the interesting bit. Different types of quartz can cost different amounts of money, but we've already said that the quartz itself is the same. 93% quartz, 7% polymers. So why? Why is there a difference? Well, first of all, let's just discuss the different price bands within one range of quartz, and there are many ranges of quartz, but different price bands. Why are there different price bands? Nothing whatsoever to do with the quality. That's the same throughout. Yes, the thicknesses, as we've already mentioned, make a small difference to the price. But one of the main reasons there are different price bands for your quartz worktops is how difficult or otherwise it is to get the pattern that you're after. Now, generally speaking, a more uniform pattern is the less expensive way of producing quartz. That's the easier way. If you're wanting a more intricate pattern, such as this marblesque again on the back wall here, that's more difficult to manufacture, and therefore that will be a higher price band. So it might be worthwhile, when you're getting costs from your kitchen designer, ask them to price you for your quartz in all the price bands they have, and then you can see whether or not you like a colour in maybe one of the cheaper price bands. Because remember, you're not paying for inferior quality, it's the same quality, it's just the pattern that's creating the different bands. Now, there's another reason you'll see a vast difference in quartz stone costs. There are many, many different suppliers of quartz stone, and the fabricators, who we've already mentioned, will buy their quartz stone from these big producers. You've got Silestone, you've got Caesarstone, you've got Simstone, and I could go on. There are many of them. So why, if you were to choose different products, is there such a big difference in costs? And there can be. It's simple, really. Most of these fabricators will actually stock their own range of quartz stone panels. It's there in their factory, ready to be made. There won't be a huge choice of colours because it's an in-stock product. There might be only 12 or so to choose from. But that's great, because when they make the tops for you, they'll take a sheet of their quartz stone, they'll cut all your worktops out of it, and if there's a bit left, they put it back in the racks and then they can use it for somebody else's kitchen. No problem. However, if they have to buy the sheet of quartz stone from one of the big producers, such as Silestone, Caesarstone, etc., they don't generally let them buy just half a sheet or a quarter of a sheet or an eighth of a sheet. They have to buy the full sheet and pay for it. And you might find that when we're doing your design for you, there's one little tiny worktop that eats into another sheet. And therefore that tiny little worktop can sometimes cost as much as the entire rest of the kitchen, because there's no use for the offcut for the fabricator. It's most unlikely they're going to be asked for that colour again. So it's either thrown away. As a tip, if you are using one of these Silestone or Silestone type tops, discuss with your kitchen designer, are there any offcuts from the fabricator? Sometimes they'll let you have them. I'm not quite sure what you're going to do with them, but it's there. Ask anyway. So what happens is, these products can cost a lot more money, not because they're any better, but because you've chosen a particular colour that's only available, say, the Silestone range, and the fabricator has to buy more sheets to fulfil the job. So give that some thought when you're choosing your colour. There is another big reason why some of these big producers charge more money for their actual product. And what you've got to consider is a simple business rule, really. You have to charge for your product and cover the costs of your business. And some of these bigger manufacturers, no name mentioned, if you open any of the glossy magazines, Homes and Gardens, Kitchens, Bedrooms and Bathrooms, you name it, they're double page, massive advert. You might have some Hollywood model lying on a worktop or some Spanish racing driver. Basically, it's a huge marketing business. And guess who's paying for all that marketing? You've got it. You have. So it's worth bearing in mind when you're opening these glossy magazines, you look at an advert and the price of that advert has got to go on the product you're buying. You're not paying for better service. You're not paying for any better product. You might be paying for more choice of colour, admittedly, and that might be worth it to you. But I would always get two prices in. One for an in-stock product from the fabricator and one from one of the brand names, and just see where you stand. It's worthwhile. So, actually, how much can you expect to pay for your beautiful quartz worktops? I think the best way of portraying that is to compare it to a basic laminate worktop that you would otherwise have in your kitchen. How much more are you going to invest to get quartz as opposed to laminate? Now, typically, from my experience, I'd say you're looking at between £2,500 to maybe £4,000 more than the cost of your laminate worktops. I've explained why in this video you've got that disparity between £2,500 and £4,000. Now, so you've got to ask yourself, is it worth it? Is it something that it's worth spending another £2,500 to £4,000 on? And quite honestly, one of the main reasons for having quartz, I think, is aesthetic. It's its appearance. Some people just absolutely love that flat, polished surface, which laminate will never give you. To some people, it's worth to go to quartz so that they can have their sink undermounted in the quartz rather than what we call a sit-on sink. There are certain elements that to some people make quartz worth that extra money. And quite frankly, if you've always said to yourself, when you're having a new kitchen, you're having quartz worktops, well, it is worth it to you. Whether or not it's going to be more scratch resistant, more heat resistant, you want quartz, therefore that money is worth spending. But it's a lot of money. And you could say to yourself, well, we could spend that money elsewhere. We could upgrade the appliances. I could have that pyrolytic cleans itself oven. Or I could have a big American fridge freezer that's plumbed in with chilled water. Or even a cooker boiling water tap. You've got to weigh up where your money is best spent. But now you know that little bit more about quartz worktops, hopefully you'll be able to make that decision. Now, to sum up, things you should do when you're considering buying quartz worktops. Always make sure that the kitchen company you're dealing with itemises out the price of the quartz worktops away from the rest of the kitchen, so you can actually see how much they're costing you. Then ask them, could you please price me in all the price bands within that range, so it helps me with the colours that I might want to choose and how much I can save or how much I have to spend more to get the colour I want. And it's also worth asking them to quote you for not just one of the branded products, but one of the in-stock products from the fabricators, because I'm telling you, you will see a big, or you can see a big difference in price there. And finally, from a logistic point of view, always ask your kitchen designer, how long will I be without worktops? And can you offer me something temporary? Okay guys, that's it. That's it, Quartz worktops. Yes, we will be doing a full video on laminate worktops in the future, as well as granite and as well as other products as well. We even do lava worktops. So, if you have any questions at all, you know what to do. Comments box below. We'll always get back to you, and I hope that's been helpful. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.